Here I've got a test suite, and if I go and run this test suite, we're going to see that it passes, but look at the times. One of these is taking about 60 times longer than any of the other tests that are here. And if we look at the code that is doing this, we can start to see why. Here, we're making a service request to something. So this D&D API service is making an HTTP request to an external URL. And that's problematic because it's really slow to make requests to external services. Not only that, if the external service changes for whatever reason, that means our unit tests are then going to run really, really badly. They're going to fail even if we didn't change anything in our own application. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what you want to do. If you really need to have a tight integration test with an external API, I would recommend creating a new integration test suite and using that to be able to make your external API calls, because then you can still run that when you need to check significant things. But for the sake of making speedy API requests and having your unit tests be able to run quickly, then you probably don't want to. So what we're going to take a look at is, before we run this test, actually before we run any of these, we're going to call this HTTP prevent stray requests method. And if I run the test again now, what this is going to show us is the tests will fail, but not for any reason you might expect. It might just be because we have attempted a request to this URL without a matching fake. So what this method is doing is saying that, hey, if any of the code in this test makes a request to an external service and you're not faking that, then we're going to throw an error. What this forces us to do is make sure that our APIs are all faked inside our tests. So rather than just that, now what I can do is come in and before actually calling this, I can come and set up a fake. So I've got one here I've just pasted in. It's faking this URL if we call this URL, and it's going to return this data. So now if I run the tests, instead of it failing with that, what we should see is it passes, but the test is running significantly quicker than it was before, because this time it's faking the entire thing. So the point of this is, by having this HTTP prevent stray requests in our tests, we can ensure that our tests are going to continue to run fairly quickly without making real API calls to external services. So instead of putting this here in this specific test, what I'm going to do is go over to our pest case, and I'm going to throw it in there. So before each test that we run, we're going to make sure that we are preventing stray requests.